This episode of Superconnectivity is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil, me and Parrot.
Hey, Phil. Let's see here. What's going on in the Marvel Universe this week? Well, so here I think is like I gotta say it's the latest rumor out of the rumor mill, which is that Doctor Strange is going to tie into the new Runaways series. This is, of course, because, as we said on All New Marvel Roundup 2 weeks ago, Nico Maru's mother is shown to be one of the masters of the mystic arts, and we do see Nico Maru's staff being used by the dark magicians that they battle in that episode. This is a kind of interestingly powerful because we do know that it has been stated that the core of the story flows one way, which is from the movies down to the TV shows. So stuff that happens in the TV shows usually isn't going to find its way up into the movies, but that we still have stuff moving from the movies down into the TV shows does say this is a interconnected universe. That what's going to happen in the TV shows is never going to be a cosmic level event usually, because it's usually going to be much more street crime, daily crime. The agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. likely aren't going to face a Loki level threat, although they did face a Lorelei level threat. So, who knows on these things. But of course S.H.I.E.L.D. is also about keeping things under wraps. So if S.H.I.E.L.D. deals with it, they're not going to want it to be in general public. That's classified, as they say. But having, as part of this major blockbuster that's about to come up, and having the Runaways series tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe coming up, and having Nico Maru's mother in the prelude, and this is something we discussed in All New Marvel Roundup. The preludes don't give you spoilers for the movies, but they can inform things that happen later, such as where Coulson got that big laser gun at the end of Avengers. He got that because at the end of Thor, they basically reverse engineered the Destroyer to create that weapon, and it's which is why Coulson says, I'm not even sure I know what this does, because it was a totally experimental weapon using completely alien technology. But you actually got that backstory if you read the prelude to the Avengers comic book. Now in the prelude to Doctor Strange, we are getting both Jeremiah Drum and I believe it was Tina Maru. Both name checked in that prelude, suggesting that they're probably going to show up in the film, and they're probably going to, maybe not have a big part, but they're going to get name checked in the film, and that's going to be your tie-in when you get to the Runaways. Which is why I think it's highly likely that Tina Maru is going to die, in that this is how she dies, and maybe that's how Nico, acquires the staff or some such. Because I get the feeling that Tina Maru in this, because I think she's going to go to the dark side. She's going to be one of Mads Mikkelsen's disciples. And she's going to use the staff. And then when she dies, the staff gets lost, and the staff winds up in little Nico's hands. And whether or not that's going to be an after credit scene, or whether that's going to be just the opening scene of the Runaways, I don't know. But I highly think Nico Maru, as the most the most high profile character in the Runaways in the general Marvel universe right now, is going to be our point of view character when we get to the Runaways. And I think having her have a direct tie in to Doctor Strange will be pretty powerful in that. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I think that would be interesting if they tied into this show that's, I don't know, like not on one of the major networks. But when you mentioned Doctor Strange, I thought you were going to mention. I thought you were going in a completely opposite direction, because didn't they say Doctor Strange may appear in Thor Ragnarok?
Oh yeah, actually yeah. Well, that's a whole other thing. What we see, well, and that's an interesting thing. Again, something you get if you read the Prelude comic book. Basically, there was, now I'm not quite sure how they did this. Someone says that in still from the movie, or someone took a picture of a scene. You see Thor in street clothes holding a business card. And on the business card is Doctor Strange's address. Now, they do an enhance to show Doctor Strange's address. But you look at the faraway picture, you don't see any writing on it at all. So I'm not sure I'm buying it 100% yet. That someone might have just somehow digitally, masterfully, because no one's saying it's a hoax, but masterfully wrote that on the card. But I haven't seen anyone try to do a reverse engineer to get back to one from the original image, but that's the suggestion, so that Thor might look up Doctor Strange. Now, is that an end credit sequence? Is that part of the story? Now, we already know the Hulk's in there, and we do know from what we've seen that there is an interesting tale of banishment going on, because we have seen Hobo Odin in this. With the idea of Odin has been cast down onto the earth as a hobo. And we see, it's interesting when we see the images of Thor and Loki, Thor is very much in hipster sweats, and Loki's in this really fine goth ensemble. He is totally dressed to the nines. As we've seen, as I've said, from the very first Thor, Loki knows how humans dress. And when Loki goes to Earth, he wears a suit unless he's making a statement. And that he's wearing a suit, and this is why I've always said, this is why Loki is the secret master of the Marvel Universe, because he has been coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whispering in villains' ears for centuries that I don't believe that the Skull found the Cosmic Cube by accident. I don't think he found the Tesseract by accident. I think Loki came and inspired him, as gods do, to drive him towards that, and in its own complex way result in the creation of Captain America. In the same way that his interactions with Thanos directly led to the creation of the Avengers. And whether that was an unintended consequence or that was Loki's plan all along depends on how you see Loki. I am much more inclined to think that this is all part of Loki's master plan. Because I do think he wants to wrest that Infinity Gauntlet away from Thanos. Because as we know that both Odin and Thanos each had an Infinity Gauntlet at some point. Although it has been suggested that maybe Loki gave Thanos Odin's Infinity Gauntlet after he took over everything. That seems less likely to me. I think that there just may be more than one Infinity Gauntlet. That the gauntlet itself, once you know how to make one, isn't that hard. Maybe. I mean,
gloves come in pairs.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great point to make on that, Phil. Way to go. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're gonna have to write that down somewhere. Gloves come in pairs. Remember that about Infinity Gauntlets. All gloves come in pairs. Bum bum bum. How ominous. So yeah. Well, the idea that there are maybe two Infinity Gauntlets and that each one is seeking to gather the gems. Although, as we've seen, every time someone tries to get to the gem, a random series of events seem to thwart it. And as I've said before, the person who benefits the most by this is Loki, because we know Loki can probably walk into that secure Nova Corps location because he walked into a secure shield location and has repeatedly, and been invisible and undetectable. We saw that at the end of Thor when Selvig is shown the Tesseract, and we see that Loki is there in shadows right behind him. That Loki right then in the most secure shield location in the universe, no doubt, and he's just standing right there, piggybacking on good old Stone Skarsgård. invited in, as all vampires must be. So, I do think that's the crux of Loki here. And we're going to get that. I think we're going to finally get that revealed when we get to Ragnarok, leading into Infinity War. Eventually. But first we get Doctor Strange. And so that's our big reveal. Now, there's another interesting thing. This is a pure fan theory bit, but it struck me there actually is a really good reason why they might have whitewashed the Ancient One. And it just struck me because it happened to be with what we were discussing about Suicide Squad, and about the fact that Suicide Squad, spoilers, if you haven't seen it yet, good for you. Fight the hype. In Suicide Squad, they straight up redshirt a character by the name of Slipknot. And Slipknot happens to be Native American. Now, Slipknot is not Native American in the book, but they made him Native American, and then they blow his head off. And it's this weird idea that, if you're going to make a Native American, if you're going to put a character of color in there, don't put him in there just to kill him. And, when you're looking about where, if it's like of all the places to put a character of color, don't make it the character who has to die. Because as I pointed out, all the known characters who die in that are African American. I mean, there's a lot of people that die just in general. It's doing well enough, so, you can't fault that. But, although we might get to that in a minute too, because it's doing good numbers, but I'm seeing numbers that aren't quite the numbers I want to see. Anyway, moving right along. But anyway, so if you don't want to create a character of color just so they die, this makes an interesting question about the Ancient One. Now, the Ancient One, of course, generally speaking, dies. He has died in the Marvel Universe. And you can imagine that someone is going to have to sacrifice themselves at the end of Doctor Strange, because magic has a cost. You don't just get to defeat the ultimate evil without the ultimate sacrifice. And it is logical for that ultimate sacrifice to fall to the Ancient One. And it is much less problematic to have the Ancient One be white if they are the one who has to die in the story. I think there might have been, and this might just be me thinking about it, but I think there might have been some 9th level 3D chess identity jujitsu going on here, where they whitewashed a character, but then they gender switched the character so that you got, oh, hey, more roles for women, even as you're counteracted by, hey, why'd you whitewash that character? And then when we kill that character, it's not, oh, you just killed, the one character, one of the only characters of color in the series. You know what I mean? So I think that there's a lot of, I think there could very easily have been a lot of discussions about this stuff, because as we've said, one thing about Disney is they're very brand aware. In a way that I don't think Warner Brothers is. I don't think Warner Brothers is brand aware. Because as I've said, I think that Warner Brothers still very much is in the movie making business. And Disney isn't really in the movie making business. They make movies, but their making of movies isn't about making a movie. Their making of movies is about selling T-shirts and dolls and posters and toys and Lego sets, because every time that they make a Lego set, Disney gets paid up front. So when Lego says, hey, we want to make a Doctor Strange Lego set, they say, okay, here's how much it costs you, and we get a nickel on every piece, so that if it sells big, Disney makes even more money. But they already made their money on just those Lego sets. Because they said, if you don't sell a one, we get X amount of dollars. And for every dollar you sell, for every unit you sell, we get, this cut off the top. And that is that is Disney's business model. That is why Disney is, scary, rich, and smart. But because they're so brand aware, I honestly think that they do have that very straightforward discussion. It's like, okay, what are the faces are we putting this? Do we have our Benetton ad? Is this character who is black or is this character who is Hispanic? Are they getting adequate screen time? Are they getting something to do? Are they being a fully realized characters? Are women passing the Bechdel test? Are these other characters passing this other test that I can't remember the name of? Are we really building out these characters in a way to establish both a mainstream Hollywood hit and something that is going to be a critical darling? Because it's important to Disney to have both. The movie does have to make money, but it doesn't have to make money as much as it has to sell toys. And if you have a film that gets too controversial, you're not going to sell the toys. And so I do think there is that, third level thought going into the Ancient One. That, and I think that is how we can imagine that, yes, the Ancient One probably dies at the end of this. Yes. Yeah. And the idea, and here's the thing, when you have to condense, 80 years of comic history into a 2-hour movie, one of the things you have to do is you have to tell your hero's tale in a much more abbreviated fashion. And one of the ways you do that is establish your cosmic rules. And the cosmic rule that keeps on getting established in the magical books right now is there are costs for magic. Again, thank you, Mr. Hickman. Oh, no, actually, no, not Hickman. Alred. Right? Was it Alred who did the last Fantastic Four run? Oh, no, the one just before, the one where we got Monaco. Because that's really where this whole magic has a cost thing comes from, is from Monaco. Because Monaco is the guy who says Dr. Doom isn't a master magician. And of course, what's great about that is, of course, all these other guys, well, what do you mean he's not a master? Oh, I thought he was a master magician. He's like, you guys don't know what magic is, do you? And of course they don't. They're all science guys. They don't understand what it is. No, he's doing parlor trick. He's pulling coins from behind your ear. And it's impressive if you've never seen someone pull a coin from behind your ear. But when you get to real magic, no, he's not sacrificing anything of himself. And that was this thing, is that Doom was too much of an egoist to ever actually sacrifice any of himself. Now, we have seen that he will happily sacrifice other people. He sacrificed Valyria to those demons to gain the magical power that he would have had he pursued magic instead of science from that group of demons, which was a great story arc in an earlier Fantastic Four, when he basically banishes Franklin to hell and all kinds of nonsense. And of course, in that one, Doctor Strange helps out Reed, because of course what Reed has to say is, I don't understand this, I don't know nothing, and that's the magical word. And of course that's the trick, because of course Doom's ego would never let him acknowledge that he was not the guy who did this himself. But of course the deal he made with the demons is that he had to say that the demons gave him this power, and if he ever claimed this power was his alone, the demons could take his soul. And of course they did. Great storyline. I can't remember I think it was called Worse Than Death or something like that. It was a great one. I think, man, I gotta brush up on who all the writers are on these stories, but it was a great storyline. But that's this idea that, from good old Monaco. Oh, I hope we get a Monaco in this. And I hope Monaco comes back, man. I know he got sacrificed, but that ain't the first time Monaco died. I'm an old wizard and I don't die that easy. It would be really nice if Monaco comes back, but it's this idea. But this is where you first get this idea from Monaco that magic has costs. And then when we got to the recent Death of Magic issue, this is put up to the forefront, and we get Monaco back again to say, do you know how many times I had to drown those rabbits to beat those Nazis, And all the other people are like, oh, don't you on about the rabbits again? But of course, he's the only one who understands, and that's the thing. And that's why I think we're going to see, when we're defeating Mads Mikkelsen and Shemagorath, or the Dweller in the Dark, or whatever this villain is, that's going to be our big villain for this episode. And I do think it might be, It's interesting. I don't know if it's going to be Dormammu. I think it might be Shemagorath, or it might be the Dweller in the Dark. I think it is going to tie to the Dark Dimension, which is going to reach out again to what we saw in Agent Carter. Because again, as I said, in that prelude book, the way that the characters who dealt with that dark energy reacted to it was very much the way that Madame Mask, Whitney Frost, reacted to the dark energy in that. And man, wouldn't that be awesome if we got a little of Whitney Frost in this, even just as an Easter egg? Just, Doctor Strange going over the writings of Whitney Frost, of Dr. Whitney Frost, And again, like I said, just the thing to explain why Doctor Strange is important, because he is a scientist, and that there is a scientific understanding to this magical phenomenon. You want that deeper connectivity. And the fact of the matter is they can say, well, this is the studies of Dr. Whitney Frost, who went insane. And this is where we're at, It will be very interesting to see how it all plays out. Okay. Do you have anything interesting to say, Phil, on these crazy notions of mine? Uh-huh. Oh man. I cannot wait till Acts of Vengeance 2, because we know Electric Boogaloo, because we know Acts of Vengeance 2 is when Old Man Logan's universe comes to pass. Yeah. Oh yeah. Acts of Vengeance 2, Electric Boogaloo. Although right now Loki's on his redemptive arc, so although he may go evil again. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. So anyway, one final thought I want to give here, because this was the last. Well, there's two other bits I want to make, but this is the last bit of Marvel I want to talk about. After this, I got some. Unless you got some other Marvel you want to talk about, this is the thing, because you and I were talking about this earlier today. Our good friends, the Russo brothers, made a pretty interesting statement, which is that, you know what that statement is? Well, I know you. Yeah, well, it's like, what is Cap still Cap? And the answer is, of course, no. Cap is not Cap. He dropped the shield. He walked away from that. Tony, it's his dad's shield. He's got the shield back. But what do we do with this shield? Is there anyone who is a strong enough man to wield the shield? And have we recently seen someone who might wield that shield, Phil? Well, yeah, but who have we already seen? Frank Simpson, who in the Marvel Comics universe was the Captain America of Vietnam, which is ironic because technically Cap was the Captain America of Vietnam in actual time, but moving right along. No, but the idea of having Frank Simpson come in somewhere. And again, this comes into this idea of, could we start seeing that upseep from the Netflix, from the Hulu, from the TV series up into the movies, and saying, hey, are we going to have, are we going to, because this is the idea, because here's the idea. We know that at the end of Jessica Jones, Frank goes back into the program. Now, maybe that means that that Frank Simpson comes out and is maybe that means that Frank Simpson comes out and becomes the new Cap before he goes completely off his rocker, a la Cap 1950 style. Or maybe that means other people from the program get pulled into our next round of Avengers and maybe fudge it up nonsensically, which is why Tony has to reach out to Cap and the Renegade Avengers to fight Thanos. Because, if he's got, if they say, I need bodies, and who they offer him are the LMD Squadron Supreme from S.H.I.E.L.D., or Super Patriot, Battlestar, Nuke, and Demolition Duffy. Yeah. Well, yeah, well, that's the idea, and of course, and then you can tie that back into AIM and the Mandarin, the true Mandarin. You can do a lot of stuff with all this. But what I think is most interesting, and here's what I say: I'd love to have D-Man, because if we can get someone to whip Seth Rogen into shape, we finally in D-Man. I think you finally have a Seth Rogen Marvel superhero vehicle. I could totally see Seth Rogen as D-Man. Although, actually, do you know who would make a fantastic D-Man? I don't know the actor's name, but on Game of Thrones, he plays the wildling leader. He's got the big red beard. Okay, well, people know who he is. Trust me, a lot of people know who he is. He's the wildling leader. He's got a big red beard. He's all in love with the total butch blonde chick in it. But here's the thing: he also plays the genie for Wyndham Rewards. So I could totally see him with his big red beard, totally being the geeked out superhero guy who's like, "Oh wow, Captain America, I'm your biggest fan." It's like he's actually on the other side. It's like, what? We're fighting Captain America? I could totally see that. And you could totally see Seth Rogen in that same role. I just don't think Seth Rogen is going to do a Chris Pratt and get himself in shape. I think Seth Rogen I don't think Seth Rogen is a geek enough to get himself into shape to play a superhero. I think Chris Pratt was. I think Chris Pratt was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be a superhero." And so he put himself through that. That heck on earth to be in Star-Lord shape. Let's see here. There was something about Guardians I wanted to talk about. I'm trying to think what it was all of a sudden. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Fun super connection. Star-Lord's mom in Guardians of the Galaxy. That was not her first Marvel appearance. That actress had a Marvel appearance in another Marvel property. Do you know what film that was? Captain America: First Avenger. When Cap is touring the country, she's this blonde-haired little gal who's like, "Captain America, ooh, sign my baby." And this is sort of my headcanon. Everyone's like, "Oh, Cap never kissed a girl. Cap, Cap's got that body. He's touring the country. These women are like, I want to do my part for the war effort, Mr. America." Grandfather, maybe great grandfather, I don't know the exact timeline, but yes, this is what I'm saying. I think yes, but his mother wasn't. So what if his mother has a little bit of that super soldier in her, and that gets passed along with, as it turns out, Ego the Living Planet? That he's a little bit something else. It's all headcanon. It's sort of like how also Doctor Who is tied into Captain America's origin, because Clara Oswald, the Impossible Girl, dated Captain America at the Stark Expo. Did you know that? Yes. The girl that Cap is dating, the girl that Bucky fixes them up with, is actually the actress who played Clara Oswald in Doctor Who we then see getting thrown across time and space so that she could always be alive in every time period when Doctor Who needed someone to save him. So at some point, while she's dating Captain America, Clara Oswald in Brooklyn, New York, saved Doctor Who. Maybe that's how he was actually able to escape those weeping angels when Rory and them got sent back to the 1920s or the 1940s or something. It's a possibility. It's headcanon, and I love headcanon. Okay. Final thought for the night. Suicide Squad has doubled its opening weekend take. It's at 286 million now. And everyone says, "See, what a blockbuster hit." Now, for me, I don't think you're really a blockbuster hit till you cross 300 million, but they'll get there eventually. I do think we have to give. I do think we have to give Suicide Squad credit where credit is due. I think it was. I think it has been said it is the best of the current crop of of DC movies. And hopefully it has set the tone that's going to lead into a great and glorious rebirth with Wonder Woman. I do think maybe its success is not as much as it really seems. I think that maybe they've not had the competition, that they might have otherwise had, but that even still they've done very well for themselves, and so props to them. Do you have any thoughts on that, Phil? Well, improving itself, that Suicide Squad has really made this amount of money. Do you think it actually makes it a blockbuster? Is it really, has it crossed a certain threshold financially that you think that really you can point to this and say this was the success that DC needed? Because of course this was a less expensive film than Batman v Superman or Man of Steel, which all made more money but also cost a lot more too. And it's the first time where they're getting their Ant-Man, where it was a lower budget film that made that big money. Yeah, no, I think I don't see it. I think it continues to do well. Yeah. Well, it certainly was. And so I think that's good. And hopefully they take the right lessons from it. Hopefully they do deal with its own weaknesses, and hopefully when we get to Wonder Woman, it's not going to be Man of Steel 2. There was a great there was some nice memes out there about Ben Affleck being all proud and excited about everything, and then but I kind of thought, well, yeah, but Ben Affleck was never actually really in that movie, was he? He was in it, but he's such a very small part. And I still don't know why Amanda Waller is giving him all that information at the end. I really don't get that. I don't understand what that was about. I suppose so. I guess that's the point. But given that she already knows his secret, I think he's already there. It's like, yeah, well, maybe, yeah. So that's good. Yeah, and maybe she wants a Justice League because she realizes that if you have people that are kind of more heroic, yeah, they're not going to be as easy to control, but they're also not going to be as much of loose cannons as the Suicide Squad was. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but yeah, credit where credit is due, and props where props is due, and congratulations, DC, on your first hit. Hopefully you can repeat that success, and I mean, yeah. Well, here's what I'll say: Green Lantern made its money back too, and there wasn't a Green Lantern 2. I don't know if we're going to get a Suicide Squad 2. I don't know if we're going to get a Harley Joker film. Although I do hear that if you read the novelization, which has all that Joker backstory, is much better. That actually you do get a lot more Joker in that novelization because it's actually based off of the script that they wrote for the Joker, when then they realized they had to rewrite the script for the actual threat they had established. They just should have never gone to a cosmic threat. They should have made the threat the Joker, but it made its money back, so mazel tov for them. Okay, Phil. If they want to talk to you about Marvel, DC, or any other connections that are out there in the fictional universe, even all the way to Doctor Who, how can they write you?
They can always email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. And if you like the crosstalk between Charlie Esser and myself, you really should go over to the 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast and download the newest episode of GammaCast, where we discuss the classic Incredible Hulk TV show. The newest episode just went up today. Yay!
Hulk versus the Ghost! Steven. Bum, bum, bum. Yes, and of course, if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned mail way, the way our Ma's and Pa's once did, do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, if you like The Incredible Hulk, you can follow me on Twitter as I live tweet The Incredible Hulk Saturdays at 7 on MeTV at CHARLIEESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. That's all our connections for this week's, folks. Please connect with us again next. Good night.